Let it fly to somewhere far from here, through the crowds and through the hills of my dreams. Let this heart drift off to where it needs to be. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest sea so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. You're still in my heart. Oh, please let the wind take my heart away. Let it fly to somewhere far from here, through the crowds and through the hills of my dreams. Let this heart drift off to where it needs to be. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest sea so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. You're still in my heart. Oh, please let the wind take my heart away. Let it fly to somewhere far from here, through the crowds and through the hills of my dreams. Let this heart drift off to where it needs to be. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. You're still in my heart. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. Please let the wind take my heart away. Let it fly to somewhere far from here, through the crowds and through the hills in my dreams. Let this heart drift off to where it needs to be. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. You're still in my heart. Oh, please let the wind take my heart away. Let it fly to somewhere far from here, through the crowds and through the hills in my dreams. Let this heart drift off to where it needs to be. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. You're still in my heart. Oh, please let the wind take my heart away. Let it fly to somewhere far from here, through the crowds and through the hills in my dreams. Let this heart drift off to where it needs to be. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night. You're still in my heart. Take this heart and let it soar across the sky, to the farthest seas so it will go. Even if we are apart, you'll still be in my heart to keep you safe and sound through the night.
I see new horizons are opening up, new feelings. I feel great in every every moment. When I see the world around me, it makes me feel like alive. So
Open to the new shades. Amazing Thailand.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, Monday. Welcome all of you to the TAT webinar. I am Tanashapon Jantra from the International Public Relations Divisions. I will be your host for today. The TAT webinar is a channel that presents more than 30 online courses and various topics and let you all get ready for the situation, especially for the post-COVID-19 era. And before we begin, allow me to introduce some features that may be useful to all of you during the session. If you have any questions to our speaker, please feel free to let us know by texting with the Q&A features. If you watch on desktop or laptop, please take a look on the left. And if you use mobile devices and tablet, this feature will be shown on the top. In case you have some technical problem, please let us know by texting via the chat box on the right of your screen. And now we are ready to present the topic that will got some enhanced essential information, in particular of communications. Our speaker has been covering the Thai and Asia Pacific travel and tourism industry since 1981, which make him one of the region's longest serving travel trade journalists. He is writing a history of Asia Pacific tourism with a view to helping future generations learn from the many past successes and failure. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Imtiaz Mukbil, Executive Editor of Travel Impact Newswire.
สวัสดีครับ Good
สวัสดี
morning
ค่ะคุณ Imtiaz.
ครับสวัสดีครับ
It's my pleasure to meet you here for today. How are you?
Thank you ครับ Very good ครับคุณน้ำตาล Thank you very much indeed. Nice to be here.
All right, the floor is yours, คุณ Imtiaz, please.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me just switch to the screen. Okay, can everybody see that now? Can everybody see that? Can everybody see the screen?
Yes. Yes. The
Okay,
floor is yours. Please start.
Yeah, let me just can you see the presentation on the screen?
Yes.
Hello. Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Imtiaz Mukbil. I'm the executive editor of Travel Impact Newswire. As Kun Namtan just mentioned to you, I have been covering this travel and tourism industry since 1981, along with my colleague Don Ross, the the editor of Travel Weekly Report. I think I am probably the longest serving travel and tourism journalist in this part of the world. I have been actually very fortunate to have covered the industry over so many years, and it has really been quite a fascinating exercise to see how things have been going and take part in covering this industry as it has gone from success to success and also faced many crises over the years. I'd like to firstly thank the Tourism Authority of Thailand and all viewers for joining me here today. What I'm going to be doing today is giving you some key highlights of how the travel and tourism communication scenario has transformed over the years. My main objective today will be to challenge some conventional wisdoms. I will be moving beyond recovery and resilience. I think these are two cliches that are being overused in the travel and tourism industry over the last few years. And we need to come up with some new some new ways of looking at things. And in this context, I'll be giving you some tips on how to reset the mindset and provide a reality check, and also make travel and tourism a part of the solution in this post-COVID era going forward. Now, just a few days ago, on the 17th of June 2020, Thai Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha made this declaration, a very powerful declaration if you have a look at it. This crisis must help us reshape our nation. We should emerge from this terrible COVID ordeal a new nation that is stronger, more respected, and as one nation bound together tightly by our common heritage, our common sacrifices, and our love for each other. We must now lay down the fundamentals for sustainable prosperity and open the way for Thais to rediscover who and what they really are and all that they are truly capable of achieving. Now, if you just see in those 50 words, look at the difference there in the way that he used the word reshape, respect, and rediscover. And I think this has to become part of the travel and tourism DNA going forward. Reshape, respect, and rediscover. Keywords that I think that needs to become part of our lexicon as we emerge into this new normal. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be talking about how communications has played a critical role in helping Thailand pull off a remarkable success story. The global travel and tourism industry today has an opportunity to use its widespread communications network to do pretty much the same. And this webinar is designed to advance that agenda. Now, take a good hard look at the operating environment in which we are working today. The world is pretty much in a mess. Problems are becoming crises. Travel and tourism is reeling from the fallout of the pandemic, and information is in a state of anarchy. We are dealing with fake news. We don't know which one to believe. There is a proliferation of social media. Credibility, trust has all fallen by the wayside in this new normal of communications so far. And this is what is happening. The communication and information explosion is contributing to a global dumbing down. There is so much information out there, but there is not much smart information. Ability to make decisions is going down speedily. And this is one of the things that we need to address. Does more information necessarily mean better information? Does it mean quality information? Or is quantity simply wiping out the quality of the information and communications as it emerges from so many multiple platforms? Hence, the most important read that we need to look at today is a reality check. This goes again beyond resilience and recovery. What the industry really needs today is a reality check. Now, the biggest challenge that the travel and tourism, not just in Thailand, but all over the world, the industry facing today in the post-COVID era, is how to really build back better and prevent a return to the old normal. I believe personally in Thailand, it can be done. As I said, I have been covering Thailand for the last 40 years, and I truly believe that Thailand is the greatest story in global tourism history. It has overcome many past crises, and I'm sure it will do pretty much the same again. Now, here's another thing that General Prayut said. The other most amazing thing that COVID-19 crisis has shown me is how many great people there are out there at every level with great ideas, great capabilities, great energy, and an unbounded willingness to work for their country. Well, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I have been watching some of these great people in Thailand and all around the region for the last 40 years. And I'm going to tell you today who I consider to be three of the greatest communicators in Thai tourism history and how they have shaped the destiny of this wonderful industry. The first one is Kun Michai Viratwedhiya. He's a former TAT chairman and a former government spokesman. Many people don't know about him today because he was very active in the 1980s and the 1990s. He's the man I consider to have actually saved the travel and tourism industry. It is today where it is because of this man and his communication skills. He was once a family planning crusader, but he then became an anti-AIDS crusader when the AIDS pandemic began to burst out into the open in the 1980s and 1990s. And this is some of the things that he was saying, which shocked the travel and tourism industry, because he had to make them aware of what they were dealing with. When the AIDS pandemic started, the travel and tourism industry was doing what it usually does, which is try and sweep everything into the carpet and try and get and stop the spokesman for the travel and tourism industry at that time to stop giving what they called a bad image to the country. Well, Kunmichai basically told the travel and tourism industry this: if you're coming, and of course the people all around the world, this is what he told a group of British travel agents: if you're coming to Thailand for sex, why not stay home and eat rat poison, as both will kill you. The travel and tourism industry just went berserk at that time. They couldn't believe that a tourism minister would actually get up and say this. But Kunmichai made absolutely no bones about what his agenda was. He knew that he was trying to save not just the travel and tourism industry, but the country itself. And today he is recognized a master communicator who won a Magsaysay Award for his anti-AIDS campaign that is now recognized all over the world as one of the most successful in travel and tourism industry, in travel and tourism history all around the world. And frankly, I do believe that this is the man who saved the travel and tourism industry. The pandemic was actually going through millions, was claiming millions of victims at that time, and it was really on the verge of devastating countries all over the world. And Thailand and particularly this man, Kunmichai, can claim to have done more than his fair share in bringing that pandemic under control. The next one, the second of the great communicators, is former Thai Airways President Kunchachai Bunya Anand. This is another master communicator. He was the brains behind some of the great advertising campaigns of Thai International at that time. The Smoothest Silk campaign, the great campaigns of Visit Thailand Year in 1987, which put the country's travel and tourism industry pretty much on the map. He was a master at dealing with the media, and one of his hallmarks was what was known as the annual marketing activity plan meeting, in which about 200 to 300 aviation journalists from all over the world would be invited for a 1 or 2 day session, a complete debriefing on what Thai Airways International and what the travel and tourism industry in Thailand was doing. It was an enormous, impactful event that really raised the entire, not just the airline, but the entire travel and tourism industry on the map. And like I said, that year, in 1987, Visit Thailand Year, Thai Airways International spent more money on marketing than they spent on their operations, which certainly galvanized not just that event, but also put the entire travel and tourism industry on the global map. The third great communicator is the former general manager of the Oriental, now known as the Mandarin Oriental, Kun Kurt Wachtweitel. This man is one of the longest serving general managers in probably, I think, global history. For 42 years, he was the brand image. He was the brand image of the travel and of this hotel. I have often believed that brands are actually shaped by the individuals more than just by hanging a sign outside the door. He was a master at dealing with people. He could speak several European languages. He knew Thailand. He'd been here. He first came to Thailand as the general manager of the Nipa Lodge in Pattaya. And he single-handedly, over 42 years as the general manager of the Oriental, did more to bring quality tourists, high-spending, long-staying, famous visitors to Thailand than probably any other individual in this country. And again, he was just absolutely a master. And if there's one thing that all three gentlemen shared, they were extremely charming people. They had great charisma, they had great personalities, they knew how to deal with the media, they were comfortable before cameras, they gave wonderful interviews, they had open door policies. And I'm personally honored to have dealt with each of them in different shapes and forms. Now, their skill and talents bore fruit thanks to the teamwork and strong support from people and above and below. Travel and tourism communicators don't operate in isolation. They need support from people on top, and they need support from people below. And here are the people who are responsible for that. Above them, for both Kun Michai and Kun Chachai, they were political appointees in a way, and they needed people on top to help them out. And these were the people who gave them the support that they actually needed. General Prem Tinsulanon and Prime Minister Anand Paniyarachun, both of them who were responsible for ensuring that people like Kun Chachai and Kun Michai had the support they wanted to proceed with their agendas on the travel and tourism front. Below them, just in case people think that it was all men, no, there were some very important women. And these are the women, I think I have again dealt with them, and they're wonderful people. This is Kun Ponsari Lupaibun, who was for many years the public relations director of the Oriental. Next to her on the left is Kun Ankana Kalantanand, who was the guest relations manager. Wonderful ladies who were the I would say behind the scenes personalities for Kun Kurt. On the picture on the left, you will see him playing host to the 1967 Miss Universe. She was also at that time the Miss America, and she of course came to Thailand at that time as part of her global tour. On the right, the third lady you will see is Kun Chitdi, who was the number 2, the public relations director for Thai Airways International under Kun Chachai Bunia Anand. Wonderful people, played a great supporting role in helping these great communicators advance their agendas across the front. As they say, behind every great man stands a woman telling him he's wrong. Well, I can tell you that I'm sure many of these women did tell their men that they were very often wrong, and they all combined. They did a marvelous job and helped build the superb brand image of Thailand as it is today. So back to today. Now, we have again come across another great success story. As you saw, we fought the AIDS pandemic with great success in the 1980s and the 90s. And today, with the COVID crisis, we have replicated this. And there are 3 parts to this agenda. There is medical expertise, which we handled very well right from the early stages. There was leadership by General Prayut, and there was precise communications, which is the subject of this. It was a 3-part. Moved everything, the whole agenda moved in tandem. It was executed brilliantly, and it has produced remarkable results, again, in saving the travel and tourism industry from what would have been, and in fact, the entire country from what would have been an early disaster. Now, here is some of the things that made the communications campaign so successful. This is Dr. Thavisan. He was for many Thais the face of the prevention program for the COVID pandemic in Thailand, and he's a doctor, but he's not a medical doctor. He was chosen for this job because he is a psychiatrist, 55 years old, with a training with a degree in psychiatry, and this is a very important part of the way he handled his communications agenda. He says you have to be skilled in probing the personal history of patients to understand their background. And you have to be apt at using language. Again, see the usage of the word personal history of patients to understand their background. You have to understand history in order to do your job well. It certainly helps you move forward in what you do and how you do it. And you have to be apt at using language. The second and very important thing as part of his communications agenda, that he had to convert a sense of fear and panic and misunderstanding into courage and action. As he says, when the public is in the right frame of mind, they are willing to accept the message. It requires wholehearted public cooperation. So here we are today. The problem today is that travel and tourism communications has still not adapted to this new era. It is still stuck in the old normal, I'm afraid to say. I see a lot of the old communications still being the same old press releases, the same old social media content, the same old stuff coming out from all platforms across the travel and tourism industry. But as I mentioned to you earlier on, the reality check, reset the mindset, this is what I'm going to give you some tips on doing going forward, based on history of our own track record, of what we have done, the great individuals who have helped to shape the agenda for travel and tourism today, and who I think can play an enormous role in helping how we handle the situation going forward. Now, in the past, as I mentioned, as part of the reset your mindset, It used to be understand your customer. Today, it is understand your operating environment. Travel and tourism does not operate in isolation. Today, it is becoming a victim of external crisis, one after the other. So unless we deal with the external crisis, there is absolutely, we will never have a moment of peace. If your neighborhood is burning down, you can be sure that your hotel, your airline, your airport will burn down with it. And the agenda going forward will have to be to make sure that the entire neighborhood is safe, secure, and stable and does not burn down in order for your own environment and your own business to operate going forward. So here are 11 tips on what we need to do to create a more stable environment, a better communications platform, and create a new normal for the travel and tourism industry, not just in Thailand, but all over the world. So whoever is watching this from all around the world, the first thing you need to do is understand your country. Very often people don't understand what their country is all about. What are the social, economic, geopolitical, and all the policies of the country? What is the social, what is the development plan? Where is it all going? What are the economic indicators? What are the social indicators? What are the population figures? Understand your country. The travel and tourism industry does not operate in isolation. It is part of a much wider national agenda, which also needs to be understood by people in the communication sector. This is what people like Kun Michai and Kun Chachai, as well as Kun Kurt, knew extremely well. They were operating as part of the country. They had to know what their job was within the broader context of what was facing the country at large. The second point is you have to understand the region. Thailand is a formative member of ASEAN. Anything that happens in ASEAN at any time, whether it's a political issue, whether it's an environmental issue, whether it's a social and cultural issue, we either benefit from it or we get hurt by it. And we have to understand how we fit in this part of the world. What are the population dynamics? What is the ethnic cultural heritage? Very often, from what I understand it, if today you go up and ask anybody on the streets of any of the ASEAN countries, if they will not be able to name you the capital cities of all the 10 member countries of ASEAN. They will simply not be able to tell you. That is the level of ignorance of people of how little we know about our neighbors, and this wonderful association, which actually has great plans and policies and strategies. It just has not been able to filter them down to the grassroots level because there is a very low level of understanding. The third one is to understand the travel and tourism industry going forward. This is also another key issue. It has changed remarkably over the last few years. And certainly it is becoming, you have to understand all the dynamics of this industry, the customer segments, the countries, the distribution systems, all of these, how these have changed as we go forward. The fifth one is to understand your destination. No two destinations are the same. Everyone has its own dynamics. Whether it's Pattaya, whether it's Yangon, whether it's Ho Chi Minh City, Manila, any of these destinations, all are different. All have different dynamics. All have different unique selling propositions. The sixth one is understand the SDGs. This is the global agenda. 17 points. I have been trying to put these sustainable development goals on the mainstream these on the global travel and tourism industry programs for the last 5 to 6 years. So far, it's still work in progress. Anybody, if you ask again people, what are the 17 development goals? Nobody knows. But these are the development goals that are going to be vital to underpinning the safety and security of the travel and tourism industry going forward. Understand your product, number 7. What are the values of the company you work for? Do you know everything about your owners? What is the philosophy by which they set up the product that you are now working in? What does it actually mean to you? How does it actually fit in within the destination? What is the unique selling proposition? Understand your product, extremely important. Number 8, understand your people. Very often I go and I speak to public relations directors, marketing directors, and I ask them, do you know how many women are working for you? They simply do not know. I ask them, how many physically challenged people are you employing in your company? And they don't know that either. Every product is shaped by its people. It's full of talent, whether it's musicians, artists, ice carvers, dancers, any of them. You need to understand who your people are in order to harness the full scale of talent. Number 9, understand yourself. What is your own agenda? Is this just a job? Is communications just another job that you will handle and move on to something else when somebody offers you something something better? Or are you actually interested in making a difference to the destination, the company, the country that you're working for? Understand yourself. It would be very important to know what you yourself want to achieve from your communications platforms and your agenda going forward. Number 10, focus not on what is changing, but on what is not changing. There is an enormous amount of talk of change, and frankly, I'm bored of people talking about change and disruption. I would rather people focus on what is not changing and what will, I believe, never change. The things that the travel and tourism industry sells for a living, the values we sell for a living. And these are what I call the permanent normal: peace, love, friendship, happiness, beauty, justice, compassion, humanity, and goodness. This is part of the travel and tourism DNA, and it needs to become mainstream as part of our communications programs also going forward. Finally, communicate not to sell or market just your product, but to solve a problem. That is what will actually make a difference. That is what will help you stand out from the clutter and anarchy that is now completely clouding the travel and tourism communication systems all around the world. Finally, last 3 slides, ladies and gentlemen. I have just a few personal reflections. Addressing this COVID pandemic all around the world is going to be an enormously expensive exercise. Governments are going to have to spend billions and trillions of dollars to bail out companies, to support small and medium-sized enterprises, to put people back into jobs. The biggest problem that we will have is how governments will find that money. And when they find that money, they will have to find some way. If they have to borrow that money, they will have to repay it. If they have to raise taxes, all of it is eventually going to land up on all our backs across the system. And the biggest thing that we need to do today is to, as an industry of peace, is to stop the amount of wastage that is going into conflict and war. Wars and conflict are the biggest enemies of travel and tourism today. Whether it's trade wars, whether it's hot wars, cold wars, war on terrorism, war this, war that. There's almost what they call a state of permanent war. This is now also unfortunately becoming part of the new normal. And this is one thing that we desperately need to disrupt and stop going forward. If you take that same amount of money and pour it into something more useful, like building schools, hospitals, health centers, like building wells, like alleviating poverty, like solving a problem, that amount of money can do much more good for the global travel and tourism industry, countries, and the world, and the sustainable development goals at large. Far more important to spend that money wisely than to spend it on wars and conflict, regardless of their shape and form. The second point, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you want to get quality tourists, you have to support quality communications. If you want quantity, support bloggers and influencers. If you want quality, support quality debate and critical thinking to avert this great global dumbing down. Like I said, the information system is in an anarchy today. And bloggers and influencers, in my opinion, they're not journalists. They do not contribute much, in fact, if anything at all, to the wider debate. They are not critical thinkers. They will help you bring business to your doorstep, but they will not help you create a better world. This is something that you need to look at. And one of the problems that a lot of journalists and quality communicators have faced over the years is that they have diverted funds that have moved away from quality journalism. So if you want quality tourists, support quality communicators, not just people in the media, but as well as NGOs, specialized journals, and others working for wider causes. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, realize that COVID-19 was not a health crisis, but a national security crisis. And countries have had to deal with it in pretty much the same way. It was fought and curbed with the same tools and strategies used in regular warfare. It was fought with with decisiveness, leadership, discipline, prevention rather than cure philosophies, short-term pain in order to achieve long-term gain. There were sacrifices that were made, and eventually the results have proved to be successful. Just like we did with the AIDS pandemic in the 1980s and the 1990s, we have done that same thing again in Thailand. The same thing can also be done in other parts of the world. Today, travel and tourism is facing probably its greatest crisis in history. And we need to manage our communications in the same way that we manage our medical program. Again, a three-part strategy: solve the problem medically, exercise leadership, and get the communications going to stop the spread of the pandemic, so that we can all return to our livelihoods and put our lives back again and emerge in this new normal stronger, better, and more energized for a better future. Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure to be with you today, and I'll be happy to take a few questions in the 20-25 minutes that we have left. My address is my website address, and my email is on there. Please contact me if you need any further clarifications or help. I'll be more than happy to contribute. Thank you very much indeed, and sawadee krap.
Thank you so very much, Kun Imtiaz, for the useful information to all of us. So let me remind the audience out there, for those of you who have not submitted the questions, please be sure to type them into the Q&A session box. All right, let me wrap up some key highlights from the previous presentations from Kun Imtiaz. Communications play a critical role in helping Thailand to get back on the leader of tourism industry. And Kun Imtiaz also mentioned about you have to reset your mind in the tourism concept that was the new normal. And also the last one, realize that the COVID-19 was not only a health crisis, but also a national security crisis. Fought and curbed with the same tools and strategies used in regular warfare. Manage your own communications in the same way to pull off a remarkable success story. And that's additions for today's presentation of Kun Imtiaz. Are you ready for the Q&A session, Kun Imtiaz? Could you please bring Kun Imtiaz back to the screen? Thank you. Are you ready for the Q&A session, Kun Imtiaz?
Absolutely ready, Kap Kun Namtan. Thank you, Kap.
Of course, Kap. All right, the first question being with. Do you think a traditional media is still necessary for the post-COVID-19 situation?
Well, it depends what actually you mean by traditional media. By the way, who asked this question? I was just wondering, can you just put your name there? It would be nice to know who I'm talking to on this one. Can they put their name up there? Okay. All right. I usually try and avoid answering anonymous questions. It's useful, it's nice to have people standing up for the courage of their convictions and name themselves, so that we can have a good dialogue. Anyhow, do I think traditional media is still necessary? I think all forms of media are necessary. Whether it's traditional media, new media, social media, all forms of media are necessary. In the case of Thailand, every channel was utilized. It was Thailand actually again did what it does wonderfully in situations like this. It galvanized the entire media all around the country. Whether it's the radio channels, whether it's Facebook, like I said, this was a national security crisis, and all forms of media, whether it's the newspapers, whether it's magazines, every form of media was used. The definition of traditional media today is, of course, a gray area, but I'm extremely proud that in situations like this, particularly when you're dealing with something that needs to penetrate right down to people who don't actually have channels many people at the grassroots of society. Very often they don't have phones. They rely pretty much on radio. And if you heard some of the some of the communications programs that were being used on Thai radio today probably played an even more important role than some of the social media channels. And of course, the television, of course, which is an equally powerful channel. So they used all those media channels, and I think they will all be extremely useful in addressing the COVID-19 situation, not just in Thailand but all over the world. Like in the AIDS pandemic time, the media played a masterful role. Thailand put really the most perfect package, the most perfect combination of medical issues, leadership, and communications in order to achieve the success story, and it actually worked brilliantly.
Okay, we will move to the next question. Okay, what is the evidence or metric that show bloggers and influencers might not attract quality tourists as effectively as journalists?
I have absolutely no evidence on that at all. And I'm proud to say that, but that's okay. It's my conclusion. That's why they call them bloggers and influencers. Journalists, I think in my days, we actually qualified as journalists. We actually went through a course. We had to be licensed. We had to have a certificate, which actually meant for something, which means you had certain standards. And I think that's what journalists, if a good, respectful journalist, that's what they try and do. We stand up for something. We encourage debate. We encourage analysis. There is critical thinking. This is what we do. And I think, as a means of communication, I think journalists provide a far better quality of communications. You don't see bloggers and influencers writing for the Financial Times or the Economist or the New York Times. The people who produce these media are journalists. They're not bloggers and influencers. And I'm proud to have written for some of these publications, particularly like the Asian Wall Street Journal, like Newsweek magazine and others in my career. You don't see bloggers and influencers writing for these publications. That is what makes a difference. So if you want to actually attract quality tourism, try and support these publications that reach the quality people who read these esteemed journals, not just I would say within Thailand, but all around the world.
Okay, we are going to the last question. Everyone talks about new normal, and we have to adapt our lives. What do you think will be new normal, next normal for communicator in the tourism industry?
This is exactly, I mentioned, those 11 points that I mentioned are actually designed as part of the new normal, the next normal. Move away from understanding your customer. You have to understand the operating environment. Communicators in the past were basically, they were just PR, public relations people. They were the people who wrote the press release, attached the photograph, wrote the headline, and sent it out to the journalist to publish in their respective publications. Today, that entire, because of the proliferation of media all around the world, you're seeing a completely new ballgame. So, of course, as the media has changed, the role and responsibilities of all communicators also has to change. And again, today, it's not just a question of understanding the customer, and the customer too has changed. You're now seeing senior citizens, you're seeing more old people, you're seeing health and wellness, you're seeing mice, you're seeing you're seeing baby boomers. The entire demographics of the customer environment has changed. But more important than that is the environment in which they make decisions about where they go, and that will become a critical element as we begin to address some of the underlying challenges of how people make decisions on where to travel, when to travel, how to travel. The next generation of travel and tourism will require, in addition to the normal security checks, now people will have to deal with things like all the health checks. So the hassle factor is going to grow enormously, and that is going to play a major role in where people decide to go. So now you're seeing things like the travel bubbles. Well, do you understand? Do people, the communication industry, understand how that is all going to operate? How will it impact the country? How will it impact, and how will the decline in travel and tourism have a wider impact all around, not just within our own countries, but also within the region. How will it respond to things like poverty alleviation? How will it affect jobs? How will it affect the environment? These are all things that need to be looked at and studied very, very closely by communications. Communications, as I mentioned earlier on, was the third part of the very important strategy for addressing the COVID crisis. So now it has risen. The whole ball game of the communication sector has risen to a whole new level, and the mindset of the travel and tourism communicators, the people who are doing this job, has to rise to the same level as people like Kun Michai, Kun Chachai, Kun Kurt Wachtweitel. They were master communicators, but they knew how to focus their communication skills as part of a much wider environment. And that's what made a lot of difference for these people today. And these are the people who put Thailand on the map. And those are the kind of people that communicators today need to learn from and emulate.
Okay, we're gonna have one more questions coming up. Looking at the post-COVID behavior, both politically and social, will there really be a next normal, or are we going back to the old normal?
Thank you, Dr. Burt, for identifying yourself. Very kind of you. Thank you for watching. I think that is actually today the $1 million question. Are we going to go back to the old normal? Well, I mean, let's wait and see. If you look at just look at one of the factors one of the preventive measures that we had to undertake in Thailand in order to stop the spread of the pandemic. People were very unhappy about the curbs on sale and consumption of alcohol, right? Everybody knows that. I mean, people were really pissed off. The other social distancing, etc., they could manage. But this is something that really bothered. Everybody was getting a little bit agitated about when they'll be able to go back and have their next drink. Well, to curb consumption of alcohol was a very critical component of curbing the spread of the disease. It had to be done. This was one of those old normal. Consumption of alcohol is a normal in any society, as in Thailand as much as in any other place. Now, let us see what happens when the next long holiday comes along in Thailand or any other country. Will we go back to the old normal? Will there be the same number of accidents? Will people go back to drinking the way they used to do? Or will they learn from this and actually help curb the number of deaths on the roads over the next New Year period? Well, what will they learn from this? Alcohol will kill more people in one day on the roads of Thailand than in the entire casualty count of the 6 months that we have had over the COVID period. Our death toll for the entire COVID period in Thailand has been less than 60. 60 people die every day on the roads of Thailand over the long weekend, only because of alcohol. Will we learn from that? Is that whatever you want to call a new normal, the next normal, new normal, old normal? I really don't know. The problem is, what value do you put on human life, and how do you then move your entire machinery and your strategy in order to curb the casualty count, which is what we were trying to do in the COVID era. We were trying to curb deaths. We were trying to curb casualties. Same thing happens with alcohol. Will we apply the same philosophies? I really don't know. I'm a little bit pessimistic because I think people will just go back to drinking as they used to do before.
That was a spectacular information for all of us. Thank you so very much, Vinicius. Okay, we have no more questions, Vinicius. Thank you so much. All right, it's my pleasure to be your host for today, Vinicius.
Thank you,
and
Kap.
I do hope this session will provide an enhanced effective communication for all of you out there. Thank you for joining us once again, Vinicius. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you, Kap. Sawadee Kap. Thank you once more to all viewers, and thank you to the Tourism Authority of Thailand for giving me this opportunity. I do hope it will make a small contribution towards helping Thailand recover, and of course all the other countries all around this world, from this terrible, terrible crisis and situation. I hope we will learn our lessons and avoid repeating the mistakes of the past, and follow the leadership that is needed now in order to put this entire episode behind us once and for all, and put our jobs and economic livelihoods back to normal again. ขอบคุณมากเลยครับ Thank you ครับคุณน้ำตาลครับสวัสดีครับ
Thank you so very much indeed, Kun Imtiaz. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be appreciated to receive your suggestions or comments. Kindly give us your feedback at the bottom down below. And please stay tuned for the next sessions of the TAT webinar on tourism management by CBT post COVID-19, starting from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. on the 23rd of June 2020. For more information, please visit our website at tourismthailand.org/webinar or tatnews.org. And may I inform you that all TAT webinar sessions are recorded and available at its homepage in the past event sessions. Please use the same access code to join. Thank you for joining us today. Have a very happy and productive Monday. สวัสดีค่ะ